Hello everybody. Did you know that there is a new customer in town? It's true. It's called the Millennial. Now, before you all scream and run for the doors, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Millennial because, like it or not, the Millennial is our customer of the future. And if you're going to be in business, or if you plan on being in business over the next 5 to 10 years, the Millennial is going to be who your customer is. So let's talk a little bit about who is a Millennial. First of all, the plain numbers. A Millennial is somebody who was born between 1980 and 1997. Those of you who are of my age, baby boomers, your kids are Millennials. The friends of your kids are Millennials. What's interesting to me is that even though the oldest Millennial is only 35 years old in this year, 2015, 35% of today's workforce is Millennials. It's the biggest percentage of the workforce in today's market, and it's only going to get bigger as people, the baby boomers in particular, move out of work and into the wonderful years of retirement. So we know that they're 18 to 35. We know that they're the vast majority of the workforce. Here's a couple of other things about them that might be a little scary, maybe not. They're well adapted to change. Change has been a constant for them as they've grown up. Whereas we maybe aren't so receptive to change, they are. Change is just a matter of course in their life. They're also very tech savvy. Technology has been in their entire lives. I was talking to a Millennial the other day, and we were talking about video games. And he was talking about the graphics of the video games and how awesome they are and how much better the PlayStation 4 is than the Xbox. And I watched my grandson play with these video games, but the guy looked at me like I had a third eye when I looked at him and I said, geez, you know what? I've never in my life played a video game. Smartphones, flat screen TVs, video games, computers, tablets, iPads, all that's, they're being raised with that. That's just natural for them. But when it comes to business, because that's really what we're here to talk about, when it comes to business, they basically want three main things. The first thing that they want between themselves and a business that they're working in or with is strong, open two-way communication. Secondly, they want a high level of cooperation and support with the vendor, with the business. And third, they want innovation in their solutions. So let's talk about each of those three components. Start with communication first. When I was growing up as a baby boomer, and maybe some of you in the audience will remember this phrase, I was told what I was going to be doing. Okay, there was not a discussion. Here's what you're going to do, and the reason that you're going to do it is because that's what I told you to do. Now, when you're raised in that environment and you go into the workforce, you tend to be a little bit more compliant, and when the boss says, this is what I want you to do, we just do it. Millennials are not this way. They want to be included in the processes, in the communication process, because they were not told this is the way we're going to do it because I said so. They were asked for their opinions. They were asked for their thoughts. And the communication was two-way. So let's talk about a Millennial who's a customer of yours. And they are relying on you to do your job so that they can make their money or have their success or get done what they need to get done. People in those positions, whether they're Millennials, whether they're Gen Xers, whether they're baby boomers, there's a certain amount of insecurity, particularly early on in the business relationship. There's a certain amount of insecurity about whether or not you're going to be able to perform your job. And when you get a call from a customer and they go, hey, let me know what's going on, that's generally a good sign that they're insecure, and if your goal is to make them feel secure, you're not doing your job right now. So they tend to be insecure, and they want to be inclusive in the communication, so the best solution for that is to be proactive in your communication. If you know what your customer is looking for, if you know what your customer wants, give it to them. Give it to them before they have to ask for it. That delivering of security is huge, particularly with millennials. You have to share what is going on with them. That's how they're wired. And if you can't share what's going on with them, or if you don't share what's going on with them, they're going to go find somebody else to do business with. So that proactive communication, the elimination of insecurities, and being inclusive in the whole communication process is key. Second, cooperation and support. There are some phrases that are death sentences to millennials. I'm sorry, but that's not my department. You're going to have to go over and talk to Joe over there. Or, I don't know. Or, gosh, I'm so busy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it or not. Now, nobody likes to hear those kinds of words, particularly from a business that we are working with. But millennials in particular, it's a complete and total turnoff. Okay? Millennials have been nurtured and supported all their lives. They cannot be dismissed. The best example that I can give you about this is sports. And for those of you who know me, you know a lot of my analogies have to do with sports. But as a baby boomer, when I was growing up, when you went out for a sports team, you tried out. And there was no guarantee that you would make the team. And if you were good enough, you made it. And if you weren't good enough, you didn't make it. And depending upon how mean, I guess, the coach was, they may put up a list of the people who made it. And if your name wasn't on the list, then you weren't on the team. Some coaches, particularly mean, would put a list of the people who made it, and then they'd put a list of the people who didn't. So there was no question about it. But you'd have to look, if your name was on the I didn't make it list, it was right there for everybody to see that you weren't, quote unquote, good enough to make the team. And because that's the environment that we grew up in, we had a choice to make at that point. We could either go practice and become better and hopefully make the team the next year, or we could find something else to do. Millennials, when they were raised, everybody made the team. And everybody played. And at the end of the season, everybody got a participation ribbon. And I'm not saying that one system is better than the other. I really don't know if one system is better than the other. But the reason that I bring it up is that it's that system of inclusion that millennials get. They want to participate. They're in it to participate. And you need to allow them to participate with you in the process. You need to nurture them to a certain extent. And look, I'm not suggesting that you have to babysit or that you have to necessarily overly handhold, but you do have to include them, because if you don't, they'll go somewhere else where they will be included. Okay, it's really pretty simple. The third component, communication being first, cooperation and support being second, is being innovative and innovative with your solutions. I went to high school, and I'll be dating myself when I tell you this, but I went to high school with Steve Wozniak. For those of you who only know Steve Wozniak from Dating Kathy Griffin or Dancing with the Stars, you may not realize that he was the other Steve who founded Apple Computer. And it was actually Apple Computer back then, because that was their product. It was a computer. And they went right up head to head with the PCs. And then they started to go into the phone business. And their first phone, the first phones that they competed against were the Motorola's, what we refer to now as the dumb phones. And then they went straight after BlackBerry, which was the giant of the smartphone. Apple was successful in their development and they were successful in their business because they had people who had a millennial attitude, and they've now got a whole company full of millennials who are innovative. And innovation can either be forced upon us, you know, we're forced to change out of desperation because we're dying in the marketplace, or innovation can occur because it has been encouraged. And it's that encouraging type of innovation. When millennials were being raised, their parents and the adults in their lives were encouraging them to think outside the box, to be creative, to be different, to be flexible. All of those things that generate this innovation, that create solutions, that even get people to look for solutions in areas that they might not normally look. But if you've been trained that way, it becomes easy to do. And if they come across a company that says, no, we can't do this because this is how we do it, or this is the way it has always been done, versus, you know what, I understand what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, let's sit down and see if we can't come up with some sort of solution that works for everybody. Those are the magic words to millennials. Encouragement and innovation. They want to work with people who encourage them, who are innovative, who communicate, who are supportive. That's our new customer. That's the customer over the next 5 or 10 years that can make or break your company. Because by focusing on the needs of this next generation coming up, you have the ability, starting today, to not just survive in business, but to thrive in business. Good luck with that. The new customer, the millennial, is going to be looking at you and wanting communication, cooperation and support, and innovation. Thank you very much.